Deep in the heart of Guatemala's jungle, there's a dedicated team working tirelessly to protect incredible wildlife and natural beauty. This is ARCAS Guatemala, a non-profit organization committed to wildlife rescue, conservation, and environmental education. For more than 3 decades, ARCAS has been on the front lines of wildlife conservation in Guatemala. It was founded in 1989 as a response to the illegal pet trade that was threatening endangered species across the region. Since then, ARCAS has grown into a comprehensive rescue, rehabilitation, and release organization, helping thousands of animals find their way back into the wild. At ARCAS, the goal is simple: to restore Guatemala's wildlife. Each year, they rescue hundreds of animals, from birds to reptiles to endangered mammals. They give them a second chance at life and help them return to the environment where they belong. Their team cares for a diverse span of species, including parrots, spider monkeys, turtles, and even jaguars, often nursing them back from injury, trauma, or capture. But rescuing animals is just one part of the mission. ARCAS also works to educate communities, fostering a new generation of environmental stewards and helping people understand the importance of protecting wildlife. From hosting local students to training conservationists, ARCAS believes that education is the key to lasting change. Through workshops, field trips, and community outreach, ARCAS is inspiring the next generation to make a difference. Whether it's a single animal rescue or a community-wide conservation effort, ARCAS is making an impact. Let's meet Anna Bryant. 14 years ago, she came from New Zealand to the Jungle of Guatemala to do a few months of volunteering at ARCAS. But she never left. She is now a biology coordinator at ARCAS and already helped hundreds of animals back into the wild. She's a true purpose driver.
So I came here about just over 13 years ago. I used to work in zoos, and then I wanted to sort of get more experience and see a little bit more of the world. Yeah. And so I planned to come here and volunteer for 6 weeks just to be able to work with some of the animals I hadn't worked with before. And within the first week, that was me done. I knew this was a place that I wanted to stay and try and do as much as possible to stay here, because here you're part of something different, you're part of something bigger. You can actually see the things that you're doing, and you can see the help you're doing to these animals by letting them to be able to be free again. Yeah. And so it's a really nice place because you're forced to put your ego second, and you want the animals to not like you, and that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do. It was for me to start with, because you're wanting them to have the best chance possible to be free, and in doing that they have to be scared of people, they have to not want to be around people. But that sort of satisfaction that you get from seeing a release is indescribable, and it's very few places in the world that you can get that now.
Okay. Buenos días.
Yeah, we've got capuchin monkeys. So these are confiscated from the illegal wildlife trade, and they're not native to Guatemala. And so they arrived in incredibly bad condition. They actually arrived in big plastic boxes. That's how they've been transported. And they were covered in like their own feces, and they had ulcers and fungal infections. And thankfully they improved a lot, but because they're not native to Guatemala, we can't release them. And capuchins are one of the most intelligent monkey species, so they have to be in a very specific type of cage, but still in the wild. And so with animals that aren't releasable, because we don't own any of the animals, it's all under the, it's kind of like they're citizens of the world with a Guatemalan passport. The government is in charge of that. And so if it is illegal to have a native animal in your possession unless you have a permit in Guatemala. Some people have permits, and so we're just waiting for someone who has a private collection that is suitable to be able to move those animals. And so it has to go to an area that has a better enclosure than what we can provide. So that's actually written into the judicial part of the confiscation ruling. When we do have confiscations, they actually do the court case here in front of the clinic. And so they record it all so that the animals can then move on. Sorry, you're going to ask a question.
And where are they native to?
They're from pretty much, I think it's Nicaragua, El Salvador, downwards. And so down to Costa Rica. So we don't know if these came from sort of like a neighbouring country or from Costa Rica or from anywhere. So it's super, super sad. I think one of the main lessons I've learned since being here is to not take anything for granted. Like, it's very easy in a lot of Western cultures to take, it's in a very sort of consumerist culture, and to take so many things constantly. Something's broken, you just buy another one. You see something on TV, you just buy it and you've got it that day or the next day. And so seeing people here survive on a very small amount and be very happy. Some of the people, locals I've met here are some of the most kindest, some of the most welcoming, and also some of the poorest. It kind of makes you feel very bad for having just the luck of being born in a different country. That's all it really is. And to see how people can work together to go get that little bit further. So I think that's a lot of it, is not taking anything for granted, and that even small actions can have a huge impact, and you don't necessarily know it at the time. And so that's what's been really nice, and being able to some extent touch a lot of people's lives in different ways, and have them be like a volunteer that's been very quiet and then like the last day, like, I've changed my whole way of sort of life kind of thing. And so you never could have assume anything, I think it is, but no, it is. It's nice. Definitely a very rewarding way of life here. I think some of the challenges I think that we face the most of is funding, which is one of the challenges pretty much every wildlife conservation centre fund. Sort of they all struggle with that.
Yeah, but it's the same in Akumal. They also
it's just there's not a huge amount of readily available money that goes, and it's a constant sort of drain because animals need food every single day. That's one of the main ones. We're constantly looking for different projects and different grants that can be applicable to us, but again, it's a constantly run thing. That's one of our main challenges, and that goes hand in hand with getting more volunteers for our volunteer program. So those are the two biggest challenges that we're facing, and trying to improve our social media, improve our like internet footprint, if you will, to get more out there, because obviously the more well known you are, the better it is, and it can be very frustrating when there are other centres that aren't necessarily doing the processes correctly, and they're having a lot of contact with animals, and they get everyone.
That was also my question now, like a second question. I feel like, how do you compete with other organizations that are not similar but a bit similar in the way of animals, but how do you compare to them?
I mean, it is a very difficult one to be able to compete, because what attracts people to a lot of those centres is that they can be very hands-on with animals. They can play with the animals, they can play with a monkey, they can play with a small cat, and with us, how we can compete is by doing it correctly. We want these animals to have the best chance, so it's putting, again, the animals are always coming first, not people's feelings, not people wanting to have that sort of experience, because it's not the correct one, and it's not the best one for the animal. And so it is a difficult one that we're constantly fighting with, because it's always going to be the case of someone holding like a baby margay or a baby monkey and having that on social media. It immediately comes, I want to go there, I want to come and help and play with that animal. Whereas us having masks, standing back and going, that animal that you can't really see is great, because it means that it's going to be wild. So on that sort of side, it is very difficult, and then the other centres that have that sort of contact are actually damaging things in the long run by providing that false sense of what it is like to work in a rehabilitation centre, which is different from a rescue centre, where rescue centres, they aren't releasable. It's very different, as well as promoting to a lot of people going, I want one as a pet. So it's a two-edged sword to how much damage that can actually do. So what we try and do to put ourselves apart is that this is the correct way to always put the animal first.
Like what was the most crazy story or experience you had while working here, or what?
There are so many.
I can imagine that.
I was one because I was thinking about it recently, because I did a talk and it came up. A lot of things happen here that now are very normal, and it's normal to have these sort of conversations and go, oh no, a crocodile arrived, that's fine, or something along those lines. But one was a few years ago where I thought of how very far I was away from New Zealand. We were tracking monkeys on an island in a national park, and the radio collar was coming from a very, very dense area of forest, and we knew that she'd been eaten by the jaguar. We knew there was jaguar there because we'd found footprints and heard her roaring, and or him, we don't know what it was. And we had to go and retrieve the collar, and I was with my colleague, and because it was a very thick forest, the jaguar makes tunnels through it, and it was full of decomposing leaves, are about that thick, so when you put your hand in it sort of went up to about there. And so he went in first, and he just had the most huge grin on his face. He was like, oh, go and find it. I'm like, oh, sure. And I took a selfie on the thought of, if this jaguar kills us both, eventually they'll find us. That they'll come and find us, and they might find my phone because they have to check the collar, so they'll at least know we're kind of around here, and they'll find that. Because he was like, come on, you have to come in as well. And so we ended up crawling through the tunnels. They're only about that big, and it's very, very dark, very, very thick vines, trying to find this dead monkey and hopefully not come face to face with the jaguar. We did find the monkey, we found the collar, we got to take all those photos, and obviously didn't die. But again, it's one of those just crazy kind of, of
bizarre
course,
moments.
that's just happened today, and and go from there. So that's definitely just been one of the more bizarrest ones. And then there's so many that just go through your head at any sort of given time of when there's animal escapes, or when new animals come in, and you're kind of just like, I don't quite know what to do with this, and then you learn and go from there. But yeah, it's definitely some weird experiences.
Interesting environment.
It is
exciting environment,
and definitely some interesting people as well.
Yeah.
So you have to be a certain type of person, I think, to
definitely.
do this sort of life.
Definitely.
Which is why the roof's a little bit lower. These are our nest boxes, so they're not in use at the moment, but that gives them a chance to be able to go in there with a little door at the back we can open and just check. Because we obviously want to make sure that they're okay. All of our animals have an identification, so if he puts his leg back up you can see it, he's decided not to. Our parrots have a metal leg band, which is ARCAS, and then a number on it. And with all our mammals and reptiles, they have a microchip underneath their skin. So everything's identified, everything's legal, everything is 100% known how many there are at any given time. So some of them can fly a little bit, but not a huge amount. A lot of people, what they do instead of just cutting feathers to stop them flying, they cut their wing. And so we've got a couple of wing amputees in this cage. I mean, I suppose the biggest kind of take-home message that we're always looking for here is don't buy an exotic pet. Is the biggest one. Be more aware again of pets in general, of the exotic animal trade. Just because it is legal in your state, in your country, doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And there are a lot of dogs and cats in rescue situations and pounds and things like that are dying for a home. And so if you're wanting to do something good, maybe go to one of them and look for them as opposed to buying an exotic pet, because while we see a lot of the victims here, a lot of them slip by us and go overseas, and it's because of that demand. And so as soon as that demand is gone, the animals will be safe. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest messages that we have.
Thank you to Anna Bryant and the whole team of ARCAS for showing us around. Really cool to see how they rescue hundreds of animals every year. We're now swapping the jungle for the mountains, the volcanoes. We are in Antigua. This Friday we're going to climb a volcano, but first we're going to visit EcoFilter. It's a company that sells water filter systems all over the world. Very excited for this next visit. Let's check it out.